Hello, YouTube. Myron Golden here, and I'm going to introduce you to Bishop Wayne Malcolm, the business bishop, all the way from the UK. We had him here in studio a couple of weeks ago. He absolutely blew our minds. He was dropping gold bars out of his mouth, showing us business principles from the Bible. Absolutely blew us away. Make sure you're sitting down, not standing up. I don't want you to fall down and hurt yourself, but I am telling you, he is about to blow you away. Here is Bishop Wayne Malcolm.
I started my professional life in financial services as a financial consultant, which was a fancy way of saying that I sold financial products for a financial company. I did really well at that as a young man. But what was even more exciting was the emphasis that the company placed on personal development. And so the company insisted that even though we were self-employed and that we had to make what we could of the opportunity, they insisted that we read inspirational, motivational, and educational books. So as a teenager, I was reading Jim Rohn, I was reading Zig Ziglar, I was reading the success classics, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale. And then beyond the success classics, we were compelled to attend seminars and listen to gurus and masters teach us about sales and marketing and about generating leads and about even just the art of winning friends and influencing people, creating rapid rapport, winning people over, the power of persuasion, making presentations. I was being introduced to all of that as a teenager. And so when I went into the ministry, I kind of brought all those skill sets with me. And I applied them to ministry. And so at a very early age, I was pastoring one of London's fastest growing churches. And I was just using a lot of the principles that I had gleaned from some of these masters. I think what I noted more than anything else is that they were all, classic success philosophy was effectively a fusion of theology and psychology to produce a philosophy of success. People like Robert Allen had written a book, As a Man Thinketh. And of course, it was a book on psychology, but it was based on theology. And the end result was a philosophy of success. And then as time went on, I noted that a lot of the theology was being taken out of the philosophy of success. And so what we had was a godless success philosophy. And that never sat very well with me, and decided that what we might go ahead and do is just reclaim the space because it's our space. And I think the Bible tells the story of a people who started with every conceivable social and economic disadvantage. Slavery, right? You see the house of Jacob, the house of Israel are enslaved in Egypt. And yet from that position, God begins speaking into their consciousness about a land flowing with milk and honey, about becoming the head and not the tail, about being above only and not beneath, about houses you didn't build and vineyards you didn't plant and wells that you didn't dig. And God saying, I'm going to give it all to you, but you have to survive the journey. And in order to survive the journey, you're going to have to move to new levels of faith, because the faith it takes to get out of Egypt is not going to keep you through the wilderness. And the faith that keeps you through the wilderness is not going to get you into the promised land. So you have to keep on building your faith to new levels. And according to your faith, you're going to be able to transition from slavery to mastery, from being a tenant in Egypt to being a landlord in Canaan. And of course, the Jewish people, or the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, certainly under King David and Solomon, became the envy of the nations. I mean, all of the kings of all of the Gentile kingdoms paid an annual subscription to King Solomon simply to sit and hear his wisdom. And I think that is the biblical basis for the coaching industry, that fundamentally there is a wisdom that makes you wealthy. There is a wisdom that overcomes adversity and obstacles, and it's worth paying for, because ultimately, value that is not valued is not valuable. Ooh, I'll say it again. A value that's not valued is not valuable. That simply means that when you pay for something, You make an internal subconscious contract with yourself to follow through on the information that you've received. And outside of that internal contract, it's optional as to what you're going to do with it. If you pay for it, actually, you've decided you're going to listen carefully, you're going to take the notes, and you're going to follow through. And so this was Solomon's idea. He said, look, I'll show you how I became the richest man in the world, but you're going to pay an annual subscription for that. And that's perhaps the basis of the coaching industry. So I think that the story of people coming from slavery to mastery, that's ours. We own that. That's our ancestors. That's our spiritual heritage. And I am not content for a philosophy of success to be godless. I think our philosophy of success should be full of God and full of biblical principles and kingdom concepts, and this is ours. And I guess we're at the dawn of a revolution in which traditional Christianity and historic Christianity is colliding with the kingdom, the culture of the kingdom, and we're having to make a decision about whether the whole thing is about getting out of here and going to heaven, or whether it's about thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I guess, I inherited a theology that said, look, this world is not my home. I'm a stranger here. I'm a pilgrim. I'm just a passing through. And so the idea was you live as detached as you possibly can from the world because, you're going to get out of here. But I don't really see Jesus promoting an evacuation mentality. All right? I don't see him promoting an imminent evacuation. Instead, he taught us to pray that the kingdom would come. So this is not about me going to heaven as much as it is bringing heaven to earth. And like I said this morning, God is standing by his original intention, which means that he is going to get what he wanted in the beginning. And what he wanted was heaven on earth. And therefore, he's going to get just that. And best thing we could do when we discover the purpose of God is align our plans with his purpose, because I have found that it is much easier to do what God is blessing than to ask God to bless what you're doing. All right? It's much easier to ask to do what God is blessing than to spend weeks, months, years asking God to bless what you're doing. If you'll do what he's blessing, then what you're doing is already blessed.